Hey folks, have you exhausted all of the treasure options for your game? Looking to add some new kinds of items and crafting options? Then today's review of the Pathfinder Treasure Vault is for you. Paizo sent us over a copy of the Treasure Vault for Pathfinder 2nd Edition to review, and first off, I have to say this book is crammed with stuff. You are getting 222 pages of new gear, equipment, magical items, as well as alternative crafting rules. Plus, there's some fun lore thrown in. Before we get into the specifics of this review, if you're new to the channel, hi, I'm Dawn, and this is Roll for Initiative. Go ahead and click that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our weekly videos all about tabletop role-playing games and our other geeky interests. Okay, let's get into the details of this book. Before you get to the actual items and treasure, there is some fun lore and flavor text that presents this book as a guided tour of a mighty dragon's treasure vault, curated by kobolds. I have a particular fondness for kobolds, so I really enjoyed this presentation. This book is broken down into 6 sections: armor and armaments, Alchemy Unleashed, Momentary Magic, Trappings of Power, Secrets of Crafting, and the Game Master's Trove, along with a treasure table at the end and glossary/index. So let's start with this first section, the armor and armaments. This is pretty self-explanatory. You get a bunch of stuff including 18 new armors, 18 magic armors, 12 new shields, 7 new magic shields, 38 melee weapons, including a frying pan, and 15 ranged weapons, including guns. There are also 5 combination weapons, like the bow staff, that can be used both for melee and ranged. I really like these combination weapons, and 23 new magic weapons. I really like the paired weapons. These work best alongside a counterpart, and I could see acquiring the pair to be a quest. Although I did wish there were more than just 2 pairs. Going through and looking at all these different items, you are getting the rules and stats for these items, but also some guidance and options to customize them to make them your own, with things like item traits, adjustments, as well as runes you can apply to various items. Plus, many of the included items and treasures have options for effects depending on the variant that you choose. As usual, there is some great artwork providing great visualizations of the weapons and armament. Especially in this section, I appreciate that, as I know there are some folks that do have a lot harder time visualizing something just from a written description, and especially for items that you may not be as familiar with, like for me, looking at the Leomano looked a little different than I necessarily first envisioned it when reading the description, as well as the Bec de Corbin. Moving on to the next section, which is all things alchemical, you get 7 new alchemical ammunitions, 6 bombs, 28 food items. These are really cool, and I could see like maybe having an NPC or a whole restaurant that specializes in these foods. 11 alchemical tools, from dyes to sparklers, repellent to healing vapor, 9 bottled monstrosities, including a bottled kraken, 14 elixirs that focus on a lot of conditions and buffs. Many do have drawbacks to balance out their great benefits. There are 33 new poisons, as well as 18 permanent alchemical items, which is really nice to see an option for an alchemist that aren't just one-off consumables. I will say that this section, along with a couple of others, has a lot less artwork than the first section, probably because a lot of these items would just kind of be bottles or stuff that's consumed and applied to other items. It's not great things to visualize liquid. It does make sense, but it makes this section feel a lot more dense. Also kind of sprinkled in are a number of asides, like the one on page 73, Creating the Moment, that provide guidance for the Game Master on how to use many of these items in the game, and suggestions for maybe how you can share the book with players for them to indicate items that they're interested in. I like this because it helps that it's not so overwhelming of like, here's all of the items that could possibly be available, and as a Game Master, I can show my players and say like, hey, pick out a couple of things that you might be looking for, and then I know I can sprinkle them into the game or work them into some kind of adventure hook. Now, this next section, Momentary Magic, focuses on one-off items, and there are a number of new items in this section, specifically the magical missives, which are comprised of letters, musical compositions, and drawings triggered when they are examined. These are really cool, and there are a variety of beneficial missives as well as essentially like trap missives. There are only 7, and I really wish there were more because these are kind of my favorites from this section. In particular, I really like the red-handed missive as well as the heartening missive. You get 8 catalysts. These were first introduced in The Secret of Magic, which are items that can be consumed to alter a specific spell. While these are very specialized, there are some cool opportunities to do some really cool stuff if you have one of the spells they alter. There are 16 Foolies, pronunciation? I don't know. A spell you can affix to various things or creatures that, when triggered, have a variety of effects. The Ghost Courier and the Ghost Delivery Foolas are really interesting ways to me to get messages back and forth, as well as there are some things that are kind of like more traps or like buffs and stuff like that. Additionally, this section has 15 magical ammunitions, 12 oils, 17 potions, 20 talismans, and 17 wondrous consumables. Many of these wondrous consumables seem to be kind of inspired by other pop culture things, like the Bargainer's Instrument. There is a very well-known song that this feels very much influenced by, as well as the Ocarina, which I think you can probably guess which game I think that's inspired by. We're going to take a quick break from the review to thank all of our patrons, especially Tucker. If you want to support our channel, help us make these videos, as well as pick up some cool perks along the way, you can head on over to patreon.com/rollforinitiative and check out the perks of being a patron. Okay, let's dive back into the review. The Trappings of Power section contains permanent major magic items. Within this section, you're getting 15 new Apex items. There are a wide variety of assistive items, from wheelchairs, canes, prosthetics, things that can help with hearing and smell, kind of runs the whole gambit. You also get 16 grimoires. Love the pop-up book one, 16 held items, 24 magical tattoos, along with 2 tattooing feats, 18 spell hearts, which are talismans you can use over and over, along with a variety of staves and wands and a bunch of new worn items. So I did notice as I was going through, in particular this section, that since this book is primarily stat blocks plus some descriptions, there are times where the layout isn't the most clear, and specifically it's when the name of an item is at like the bottom of a column or page, and then everything else about that item is on the next column or page. For me, this makes it easy to kind of miss an item when I'm going through trying to find them, because oftentimes I'll see that block of text and just think it was the one before that item on the page. Just whatever reason, it does that. So I kind of wish if it was just that last line, they had just spaced it over to the next page. Minor layout complaint. One thing I think will get a lot of people excited about this book is the Secrets of Crafting section. I've seen some complaints over the lack of clarity for crafting consumables versus permanent items. I know when I played a character that could craft magic items, this was something that I kind of struggled with the base rulebook crafting instructions, like how exactly do I go about this? This section clarifies a lot of that surrounds crafting, as well as offers some alternatives, such as a rule that will decrease the crafting time in exchange for increasing the difficulty. I also really like that there are now rules for how to deconstruct and repurpose items. This is something that a lot of players will kind of think of and ask about, but in the past it has been a little unclear how the GM should approach these requests. There are also 2 new crafting options: Nature, which allows druid and wild creatures to essentially grow crafted items. Pretty cool. And the story-based crafting, where notable magic items are part of a story and adventure. This section provides guidance for the game master on how to work with your players to create an adventure around acquiring and assembling the pieces of said item, and they even provide a couple of sample quests. The final section is the Game Master Trove, and it is clearly geared towards the GM, as the GM is going to need to plan around these very powerful items, and you may not want to make all of these items available to your players. Within this section, you get 8 new artifacts, 2 archetype artifacts that are meant to be paired with the free archetype variant rules, 4 blighted boons, consumables that are very powerful but have ramifications that progress through stages, 8 cursed items, and 13 intelligent items, as well as new aspects for existing relics and a few new relics. So that's everything that's in the book. And with all of this in mind, do I think that you should buy this book? Maybe. If you are a table that really enjoys treasure and magic items and you feel you've kind of exhausted what's in your other source books, yes. As well as if you're a game master, I could see getting a lot of inspiration from some of these items, perhaps building adventures around them, and especially if you have players who are really interested in crafting, some of these alternative crafting rules are really good. Although, if you're just looking for the crafting rules, maybe wait for those to be posted to the archives of Nethys. This book is very specifically treasure. You are not going to be finding locations, adventures, NPCs, quest hooks. That's not really in this book. This isn't the kind of book that I think a lot of players are going to get a lot out of, especially for the price. But a game master could find it very useful, or I could see a table going all in and invest in one copy to share. So have you picked up the Treasure Vault? Why or why not? And if you did, what are some of your favorite items? I'd love to hear more in the comments below. And if you want to see more Pathfinder videos, check out this playlist of all of our Pathfinder 2 reviews. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Roll for Initiative. Bye! Cool. There's one, and done.